How's everybody doing today? Is everyone coming on in? All right. If you guys, Charlie and Chantal 1984, how are you doing? Egan of Florida, Tally, how you doing? Yes, yes, Charlie. Good morning to everybody and happy Friday to y'all. If you're over in YouTube or Periscope land, drop me a comment so I know that you guys are there. As I am streaming, it doesn't always show me who's in the house. So if you guys can shoot me a comment, uh, I know that you're there. And also lets me know if this is working okay because I usually have some trouble streaming. Charlie, how you been, buddy? Tally, how you been? Guys, shoot me a message. Let me know how you all been. I'm a little bit trying to get ready this morning. I was rushing around. However, I have a good question from Chantel I'm going to ask. All right. So, 2973. I'm going to make sure that this is on in YouTube land. And the Abbott, how are you this morning? And how is Utah? We always want to know how Utah is. I'm going to see if this is coming on YouTube land. So, we are. Seems that we're live and well over there. All right. So, guys, here we are. I was just taking note that it is the middle of July. And how about that? All of us have been dealing with a lot of stuff since March. And if you've been following the news, if you've been following along in America's political discourse, you might be able to say that a lot of what we're feeling now is the combination of a lot of things that have been going on for quite a long time that's coming to a head. I mean, it's an election year. So, and obviously I could say that it is a lot more than I am used to, or at least maybe I'm more aware of things than I used to be during these type of periods. But also I think we all are. With social media, we're exposed to a lot of content, and we're also exposed to counter narratives, which is very important. If you see like a news outlet of, let's just say, CNN, and they give you their agenda and their news tweaked to fit their story, and then maybe Fox News does the same story and it's slightly different, but then you're seeing the same situation being described to you from an independent creator who just wants to talk about what's going on, and maybe the source material that they're using isn't manipulated or cut up or edited in a way that you haven't seen from the other media outlets. So we're all exposed to so many different narratives. It's hard to make sense really of anything. And I think there's also a reason why more and more people are getting drugged into politics. I think they want us all getting involved. Because for myself, I never used to be somebody who followed politics, and I still, at this point, even try to keep away from much of it as possible. It's just, a lot of times, it's so much in my face that you can't escape it. And I don't know if that's by design or that's just the natural fall of the situation, or maybe a bit of both. But regardless of all of that, it is now July, and we've been immersed in an election cycle that we could say basically started roughly at the beginning of the year. And here we are with now July, pure chaos. I mean, for me, in Los Angeles, we're basically told that we're on the verge of another lockdown. Everyone needs to wear masks at all time. And depending on what resources say there's a possibility that we could be in complete lockdown at the drop of a hat. So that doesn't allow me to feel very good about things. But regardless of all that, I need to be able to concentrate on what I'm doing this time. For me, I like to work within a system. So if you give me the rules, if you give me the hierarchical structure of that system, well, then I can start to put together my life and what I want to gain from it within that system. That's just how I live life. You give me the rules to the game, and I will play the game to the best of my abilities, depending on the rules. And the rules of the game have obviously been set up by people at the top, and I think there's a lot of with political arguments about what are the rules. But at the same time, if I'm looking at a checkerboard and you're looking at a checkerboard and we're about to play this game, the last thing that I need is the checkerboard being tossed into the trash and tell me that we're not playing checkers, or the chessboard. We're not playing chess, that we're playing a completely different game. I have been told we've been playing chess for a very long time, and that's the game that I tend to play within the rules that you give me. All right. So, yes, it is time to play the game, my friend. We all have to play this game. We all wake up every day with our own agenda, with our own wants and needs and desires. And then we go about getting them. Depending on your skill level, skill stack, the rules of the game, and what you want to accomplish will dictate how you're going to go into the world. So, regardless of a global pandemic, one that almost puts Los Angeles back in lockdown, regardless of the political squabblings, regardless of protests, and regardless of others' agendas, I have a Friday at my disposal for me to wring out the most enjoyment and satisfaction that I can. And I'm going to do that all weekend long. That's what life's about. Nolene, how is Ireland? Spark Sass, how you doing? Isaac Martin, how you doing? Kay's Project, hello, Kay. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss today was I felt alarmed with Twitter being hacked the other day. Because when it comes to our technology and the security systems that are going into it, I don't know about you guys, but I have been hearing for decades that our cybersecurity isn't very good, and that it's limited and there's holes all through it. And regardless of whether it is social media or our government's technological systems, if they can easily be broken into, well, don't you think that changes the parameters of what war or international intervention looks like? Now, I'm not saying that Twitter was hacked by an international or state-led force. What I'm saying is that it was broken into, it was hacked, and some of the largest accounts, or at least the most influential accounts, had been compromised. Now, it was a silly scam to get Bitcoin, at least on face value. That's what it looked like. They managed to scoop up about $100,000 in Bitcoin over the span of 2 hours. But the bigger picture is they could have tweeted anything from anybody's account, or anything from multiple parties' accounts. Granted, I think a small percentage of Americans actually use Twitter, like 22% have an account, but how many are on Twitter regularly? How many use Twitter to get their information? So out of that 22%, using law of averages, we can say that considerably less people probably use Twitter as an opportunity to gain information. So regardless, the chain of events that can be set in motion because somebody is tweeting out certain things from certain influential accounts, that doesn't make me feel very good about any of the other technological security systems that might be exposed. Twitter is 180 characters, but do you know, I don't know how many of you guys use it. I use Twitter. In fact, that's where I get my news from. I am uninterested in having my news be delivered to me through an agenda and a lens to fit that agenda. So I need to grab multiple sources in order to be able to get the best view of a situation that I possibly can get, including what we're in today, which means that I need multiple sources readily available. So Twitter is a good way to do that. I can look at a story from Twitter from multiple different sides and use my own common sense and narrative. I do cross-referencing so that I'm not stuck with just somebody's bad agenda and bad narratives to fit that agenda. Charlie says there's a lot going on about the hack with Twitter. Yes, there is. And if that's just Twitter. So regardless of how they went about doing it, it was done. And that you would think that if all of our social media is going to be locked down, maybe we could say that a lot of us are naive. Yes, well, a lot of us, I wouldn't think that a lot of us, well, yes, a lot of us are naive, but at the same time, we're also vulnerable, which doesn't help our naivete. And those two things go hand in hand, which is why I like to check multiple sources to put together my own narrative of what is going on. And when somebody tells me this is the way that you should view something, I tend to get upset about that. I don't like anyone to tell me how to view or how to deal with anything. I like to make up my own mind. Oh, look at that. I just realized I didn't have my microphone. I guess it's going to be one of those days. All right. So with that, here's the other thing about the Twitter thing that makes things so difficult is it is obvious from the statements that Trump and Barr have made over the last week. And we all know that we're entangled with China on a certain level that makes things difficult, as they're always going to be when you are a world connected power. Things get complicated. And when things get complicated, you're going to need more than one source telling you what's going on. So with security networks and social media being vulnerable, and we have world superpowers that we are in, that we're in a squabble, that are contentious, well, those things make me uncomfortable. Charlie says Facebook is telling that the cover of 90% of all posts they place on their network. How much is the other 10%? Well, I don't really think I got that full question, Charlie. I think we have a translation issue. But regardless of all that, as we continue to move through the 2020 year and election, and it's July, and here we are, obviously we should continue to buckle up because this is just the way things are. Now, I have a really interesting question that I had gotten that I want to read, which goes along with this, because we're in a place where everything that is going on is making it difficult for us to be high value human beings because we get exhausted. So Chantel has written, those of us who are super empathetic and are definitely exhausted right now because we keep absorbing and try to understand so many emotions each day. It feels like our filtering system is on overdrive. Is it possible that this will force many empaths to become more selfish over time? For me, I feel like it has certainly changed my perception of wanting to understand others, where my logic has superseded my emotions. All right, this is a great question. We are all, you don't need to be an empath to feel emotionally fatigued of what is going on around us. We have been dealing with the current situation, with the pandemic itself since March, let alone everything else that goes with this. I mean, the political squabbling hasn't stopped for some of us for a few years. For some of us, might even be since Trump was elected. And I'm certainly not going to dump it off all on him. But you know, guys, how I feel about that. But it's this politics in general. And here's the thing. They want you exhausted. And when I say they, I mean the people who don't want you thinking for yourself. You see, you are putting together a narrative that is going to give you some safety and satisfaction about what is going on in the world. That takes your eyeballs and attention off of their narratives that they want you to buy into. Remember, as we talked about this on the show, in America, we have a right and a left, and you feel compelled to buy into one of those narratives. You don't need to. You don't have to. Those narratives are both flawed. Now, and those narratives are also based on temperament. And so the more that they can stir up your certain emotions, the more you're going to resonate with one or both, one of those narratives. What is most important here is to make sure that when you understand that anytime the narrative is pointing out somebody else is the bad guy, or that you should be angry at this group or this person, you need to investigate that. Anytime someone points somebody out as the bad guy to me, I immediately start to do my own research to figure it out. Tally says, now that we're being divided again, mass versus no mass politics. Yeah, more of that. That's what's going on. So you wouldn't be the only person who is worn down emotionally. We all are feeling emotionally fatigued. So yes, if you're an empath, you're probably feeling that more than others, but we're all being beaten up at the moment. The reason is, if you are getting beaten up emotionally, if you are getting tired of this whole thing, then you give up your own cognitive processes and turn them over to one of the warring sides. That's what they want you to do. They want you to give up. They do not want you to hold together your own thought processes and narratives of what is going on. That does not benefit them. That benefits you. Now, let's go. This is a great question. So let's go into another part of it. Yes, our emotional systems are on overdrive. Is it possible that this will force empaths to become more selfish over time? Well, for the immediate future, you will have to isolate yourself a bit to hold your own wits about you, to hold together your own sanity. You cannot keep exposing yourself to counter narratives in order to understand other people if they are unwilling to understand you. If they're unwilling to have a conversation, if they're unwilling to have a debate, if they're unwilling to share or show any understanding, then you cannot continue to put yourself in that position to continue wear yourself out. You have your own life to live. You have your own community of close-knit people, which you want to be adding value to. And you're going to need to save yourself for those people, the people who you know need you, who look up to you, who use your friendship and sanity and empathy as a guidance system. Now, for those who are unwilling to learn, compromise, discuss, at some point you're going to have to give up on those people. And now I know for a lot of empaths, they take it personally and their own mission to try to understand everyone around them. This is what empaths do, but you cannot continue to do that and disregard your own well-being. And right now, I have mentioned this, we are dealing with mass psychosis. We are dealing with a mass panic. This is not as if you couldn't have mass panics, moral panics, mass psychosis in previous history. As human beings, we have gotten caught in our own trap many times throughout history. Human beings run on fear. We make decisions based on fear. Fear is what keeps us alive. So with that, and understanding that, you're going to need to become a little bit more selfish. You're going to need to become more conservative cautious of who you give your emotions and your time to, because you're going to need to hold it together, because we're only in July and I don't see any of this stopping. In fact, I would imagine it's going to get sillier, but that's where we're at. So that answers that part of the question. Is it possible that this will force many empaths to become more selfish? For your own sanity, I suggest that you think about restricting that and being more cautious of who you give that empathy to. And the last part of the question, I feel like it has certainly changed my perception of wanting to understand others. Yes, mine as well. When I hear certain words, when I see certain cognitive processes that are uninterested in learning, having a debate, discussing situations, and it's just cramming bad narratives, beating the drum of bad narratives, bad understandings, I, I, I'm uninterested in having that conversation. I don't think that's good for society. In fact, that only contributes to more of the mass panic, more of the mass psychosis. But is it really our jobs to drag everybody into the light? Is it really our job to force people to see things our way? No. The only thing that we can do is drop some breadcrumbs and hope they follow. That is it. It's mindlessness. Absolutely. It's mindlessness. And not only that, I'm uninterested in having, for instance, I'm sure all of you guys have dealt with this, and you know how I feel about the media. I loathe the media, and I loathe the media because it is easy to see how they lie on a daily basis and how their agendas are ridiculous. So if I'm stating an opinion about something or my thoughts on somebody, and somebody sends me a CNN article about why I'm wrong, do you think that I'm going to carry on with that conversation? If somebody is so brainwashed that they can't understand that sending me a CNN article says more about how they view the world and their role within it than it does about what is about helping anything, well then it is very easy for me to move on, to skip it. I don't even go on to Facebook anymore because of this very fact. There are people who seem that is taking on their very own revolution on social media as the moral arbiters of this great nation and how you should act and how you should behave and how you should view the situation. I do not like ideologues. I do not like authoritarians. And don't tell me what to do. And don't send a CNN article to me telling me why I'm a bad person. That doesn't work on people like me. So, and I hope that kind of thing doesn't work on you guys, because if you allow these people to beat you up, if you allow these people to suck out your joyful emotions and your lust for life, it's going to be difficult for you to get that back. Yes, I am a Stooges fan. I'm an Iggy Pop fan. And I love that phrase, lust for life. It is your lust for life that is going to allow you to wake up every day and get after it and start creating a life worth fighting for, which we've discussed on this show. Estevan says, Facebook is strictly for hitting up the AOC family page. Yes, it is, my friend. Peter Horrell says, no. Amen. Yes, exactly. It's not original blessings. Not at all. Nolene, how do you manage to keep in touch with the news, Johnny, without being overwhelmed by watching and reading too much of it? Do you limit yourself to a certain amount? Well, I really do, Nolene. I tried to limit myself. However, I want to understand what's going on. There is so much developing. It's so fast that it is incredibly difficult to keep up with it all. So I try to limit it to certain aspects, the culture war being one of them, because not only is that intriguing, because I'm involved in self-development, it's a major part of my work. So Peter Harrell says, what's AOC? The Art of Charm, what you're watching right now. And the Art of Charm podcast, my friend Peter Harrell. So, but also, Nolene, I have figured out what news sources I can rely on, and they are all independent creators who will be honest about what their bias is and will only read the news from that perspective. And it's a perspective that I can trust. If you take in MSN and CNN and the Times, all of those networks all of those news outlets have shown that they are compromised. They have shown that they are hypocritical. They have shown that they change their stance from one day to the next. Once I have seen that, I have discounted them as any source of news that I can trust. It would be, I don't hold the news organizations to any higher regard than I do my friends. If my friends tell me one thing one day and then tell me something completely different the next day, then they lose credit with me. And if they've done that multiple times, I only give people a few opportunities for me to earn my trust. Yes, there was the word I was looking for. Credibility. I don't know why that was lost on me. They lose credibility very quickly. I don't hold news organizations to any higher standard than how I hold my friends. I don't give them free passes. If a friend of mine is hypocritical or changes their stance or hides certain truths from me in order to push an agenda, I catch that and it's consistent. You're done. So Nolene, this completely helps your view of and how you take information. Now, if you're interested in who I listen to, you can shoot me a private message and I'll give you a few outlets that I like, who are honest, that I feel that I can trust, who don't seem to have a hidden agenda. But for most of you guys, you should find it for yourself. But I would look at Twitter and YouTube and look for the people who have large audiences who are honest about their position. Integrity is the watchword. That's what Peter Howell says, and I agree 100%. You cannot get honest reporting from any of the mainstream news sources. They have been dead and compromised for a very long time. And if anything, in the last few months, it should be more apparent than ever. Oh my, look at the time. I gotta go. All right. Randy Gage is integrity. Randy Gage. Okay, well, I will check into Randy Gage. I will see who that is. Free Candy, how you doing? And guys, if you enjoy what I had to speak about today, you can always find more material in our link tree and Twitter and Instagram. Check out the Art of Charm Communication Accelerator. It has all the best bits from our online classes and live training programs over the last 15 years. And expert guests on networking, connection, and influence. Esteban says, Ana Ocasio-Cortez. Yes, no, not that AOC. She stole our acronym. All right. Is transparency possible? In what capacity? Photodog? I don't really understand. Hennison says, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I want all you guys to have a wonderful weekend. Transparency is only as possible as people allow it to be. And so no one is 100% transparent. It's a spectrum, and how vulnerable you would like to be and how strong you would like to be. Is transparency possible from the left or the right? I don't think it's possible on neither side. Well, Nolene, thank you for your great weekend. Chantel, I hope that I answered your question. Yes, we're all a little bit drained, but hold in there. Make sure you give your attention to people who deserve it. And when they show that they're uninterested in having a cooperative relationship with you, time to cut them loose for your own well-being. All right, guys, I got to head out. I will catch you all on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.